Hello everybody. In today's video what I'm going to be doing is I am going to be doing some fan art, and this here is because I've been inspired and doing some artwork, some specifically fan artwork like I was saying, and that is because I've been watching Arcane, and I must say I've really enjoyed the series so far. And one thing I really do like is the character designs and the artwork of the entire show. It has this awesome art style that I really must say I find super appealing. Now, I'm not trying to recreate the art style here, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to draw some sort of fan art from it. I'm drawing the character JINX here, who is basically one of the main antagonists of the show, and I really like her character and her costume design. Everything about her is really awesome and unique, and I want to try and recreate that sort of in my own art style here, as if I would try and draw her, and following along with a lot of her character designs here. And as you can see, I've already gone past the planning stages. I was sketching this out in a lot of different poses and styles. Unfortunately, I lost all the footage to that, and it all sort of corrupted, so I had a bit of a problem there trying to scramble around, fix it, and unfortunately I wasn't able to. So what I've done is I've moved straight on to the inking stage, as you can see here, and I'm just going through and inking out all the key areas before we get into some color work. So now that I have all of the base inking down, there is one more inking step I wanted to do, and that is JINX's tattoos. Now, she has some really cool and interesting tattoos of clouds over her, but one thing about them is that they're not your standard black and white tattoos. They're actually colored tattoos, and I wanted to try and copy that here. And they have this nice dark blue outline, so I wanted to go through and do the dark blue outline, and I could color in between them with the color there, and I would already have the dark outline without having to try and paint that outline with a brush itself. I thought it'd be a little bit easier with the markers. Unfortunately, as you'll see in a very short while, that this really does come back to bite me, and it really makes a bit of a problem with the artwork in itself. So now that once all my inking is done, I go to one of the areas of the painting that I wanted to do here. I'm going to start off with the skin, because I know this was going to be sort of a very technical area, and I wanted to try and get as right as possible. So I wanted to start with that first, so I can spend a lot of time here and try and really get it right, and I have a lot of room to adjust, or if there's any spillover I can clean it up relatively easy without messing up one of the most important areas of painting a character and getting those sorts of things right, is the skin. And as you can see here, I go to paint over the tattooed areas, which I thought would just, you know, go into the color and I could adjust them later on. And because these markers that I was using aren't like regular markers, they react with water, and they immediately started fusing and blending in there, and it just became a real problem. So what I did is I just stopped immediately, carefully going around there, waited for everything to dry, and then work on coloring those tattoos in there as well, to try and mitigate as much of the damage as I could. So unfortunately, this artwork, I try to clean it up as much as I possibly can, but it's not perfectly gone. Unfortunately, I'm still new to watercolor and the way they react with anything, and I unfortunately wasn't able to completely erase the damage I'd done there, so I tried to mix it in as good as I possibly could to try and hopefully make it just blend and disappear a little bit there. Hopefully I did that and you won't notice it too much, like unlike me, who I'm going to notice that forever now, and I'm never going to be able to unsee it. So since unfortunately I had all of that bleeding and everything mixing together start happening, it then immediately got me relatively and pretty freaked out with what I was doing. So I decided to stop working on the skin, let everything dry so I could add more layers on top without it wrecking too much more. So hopefully this is a tip for you if you're ever doing some watercolors and you have any bleeding effect like this. You can try and pull some of it back while everything's wet, and then once you have as much back as you think you can move, let it completely dry, and then you can carry on working, and then it should hopefully stop spreading so much, because I won't be adding too much more water to the entirety of that area, because I'll be coming in with other parts for highlights and shadows and things like that, so it's not going to be completely soaked. It'll be more targeted soaked, so I can specifically sort of avoid the areas where it's going to bleed, to try and help mitigate it from bleeding even more. So while I was scared in doing that, what I decided to do is start moving to other areas of the piece that I'm doing here. And what I decided to do is, I thought what I might do is just lay down all of the flat colors that we want here. So for watercolors, it's quite good to work from light to dark. So that's what I've been sort of learning anyway, is that for me as a new beginner, starting from light and then coming in with your shadows and darker areas is the best sort of step for me to work out where I want to have all of those things in there. So what I've done is I'm going to apply all of the flats that I want on here, which is your base color that I want, but in case for this case specifically, it's going to be all of my highlights, essentially, as I'm laying down all of my highlights so I can work in my midtones and shadows as we go along here to get them all down. So picking out all the colors that I want to be my highlights. So I might look a little bit bright and washed out while I'm doing this step, but it's going to come in when we add those midtones and our shadows. So now that I have all of the flats down and the highlighted points, now I can come in within the case that I'm doing here, and my starting point is I'm going in with the skin, working that color that I have now for my shadows. So all I did was just add a little bit of some darker colors to it, some browns and some grays, that sort of thing, even a little bit of red to just dull the color down, make it a bit more richer and vibrant. And what I'm going to do now is pick out the areas where I want the shadows. Now I'm still definitely used to working this way, as one of the other things of course I do on my channels, I do miniature painting. The way I paint miniatures is I paint it the opposite way. I start from the darks and work to the light. So doing this is going a little bit backwards in my head, so taking me a little bit of time to work out what I'm doing here, making sure that I'm feeling right about it. But one good thing about watercolor as well is that it's actually sort of reasonably forgiving in some areas to clean up and to just adjust slightly, or you can even wet it just a little bit more, and you can force a lot of colors to mix together, so you can sort of fix up a little bit of your mistakes that way. So that's one cool thing that I've been learning with watercolor. And I must say, one other benefit I've definitely been having a lot of fun with watercolor is when I was laying my flats down there, is that it's so nice and quick and fast to lay down a color everywhere if you've got a little bit of brush control. As like I said, I do a lot of miniature painting, so I'm used to using a brush quite a lot, and so I can get reasonably good control without sort of going out of the lines and that sort of thing pretty quickly, and the color goes on so nice and smooth immediately, and it blends nicely into the paper that you're able to get the flats down really fast, as where I've only ever sort of used coloring in pencils before this, and doing my sort of art journey that I've done here on YouTube, is that you spend a long time coloring in an area to try and make everything look sort of even without leaving streaks and marks, as well as doing those sorts of things in there. So using watercolor like I have been since I've been enjoying it so much, is one benefit is that I've gotten really fast at laying down just sort of a base color and getting it all nice and smooth without seeing massive brush strokes in it. So that's been super fun to do. But as you can see here, I'm just going through and picking out the areas where I want to have as my shadows for my skin. So since I'm doing a painting here with watercolors, one of the cool things about doing painting compared to other types of drawing like I do in my traditional drawing is that of course I can layer my paint up, and I'm taking advantage of that here since JINX has stripes on her costume and awesome nice patterns on there that would take me quite a while to try and get nice and evenly and to look right. And I would also probably add in a little bit too much detail if I was to line every single one of them, and when I go to paint each individual stripe I would probably sort of lose track of where I am and make the colors maybe uneven, or I'd risk a lot of them sort of trying to blend together. So the way I thought about doing this is if I laid my flat color down first, the highlight of the color or one of the two-tone in the colors of her pants, I can come in with the other one, for in this case preferably the dark color because it's going to cover over a lot easier, is use the dark color to do the striping pattern underneath, and then that way all I have to worry about is having my brush control and just doing one sort of line down in a nice striping motion, and it gives me a lot less room for error. So that's one little fun trick, and hopefully you can use that too. And when you're doing some artworks like that, when you're thinking about it, there's ways you can, just by using two different colors, get the effects that you have in instead of having to draw each individual line and then come in with the color, just saving you a little bit of time, and it looks a little bit more natural I think in there. And that's just one thing that I've learning while I'm doing my art journey that I've been doing here on YouTube. Is before I would have come in and definitely drawn in those with a pencil, then come in with the pen, highlight that up, then I would have tried to color in between all those lines, and I would have risked getting it pretty messy and a little uneven. So completely missing that step by having one of the colors down, in this case the lightest color, and then coming in with the dark color over top to get those stripes in immediately. That way all I've got to do is focus on where I want those stripes and trying to get those even instead of getting in between lines and stuff like that. So doing this part here is actually one of the bits that I was really scared about before even starting the coloring of my artwork, because I didn't know which way I wanted to do it first. If I wanted to work the background first and then try and paint up JINX herself that way, or to paint up JINX like I have here and then do the background in second. And I thought with me still being a beginner in watercolors especially, is that by doing all of the harder stuff first, and then I've just got to come in with a simple color for the background because I didn't want to make it too crazy here. I wanted to just be on a nice sort of grayish smoky background, and I didn't have too much to worry about since the character herself is quite complicated for me, and especially trying to follow along with her official artwork and doing stuff like this as a sort of a more beginner artist. I didn't want to mess too much up, so I wanted to keep the background relatively straightforward and simple. I thought at least I can do is I have a few seconds when if I accidentally touch the edge, which I do a couple of times in here and accidentally get it on places I don't want to, I've got a few seconds to wick up some of my mistake and sort of just slightly correct it before everything dries. And I thought that was a little bit easier to do rather than the other way around, as if I had placed the whole thing on and then I have a sort of dark smoky background color that can bleed into all of the other light colors that I have on here, like her skin tone and her blue hair, very bright and vibrant colors. And if I was painting in those parts in particular and then a little dollop goes in and they sort of spread out together, it's going to make everything grey and muddy sort of a little bit quick. So I was a little bit afraid of that, so I think I chose the right choice here, and by going in with the background last and making it super nice and easy, and I can make it as light as I want and then slowly darken it as I'm doing right now. Darken it in more and more to get that more smoky background effect. As well as that too, I'm going to do one little last part, and that is I'm going to be making some smoke come out of JINX's gun in a nice cool little way. I think added a little bit of visual color to the overall piece, and I'm going to make it some pink smoke. She's on for nice bright and vibrant colors, so I'm going to go with some nice smoke in that too, and hopefully just frame the picture a little bit more and add in that little bit of extra effect. But once we have that done like we have now, I'm going to spend a little bit of time off camera fixing up some areas, placing in some little bit more details that my head would probably get in the way of while filming this. So I wanted to try and save you from having my head in the shot constantly at the top there as I'm trying to sort of focus in on some certain details and trying to clean up some areas. So what we'll do now is we will go on to the grand reveal and see how the artwork finally came out in its final form. And so there you have it. There is my final finished and complete artwork of JINX from Arcane. Since I was so inspired by watching the TV show, I thought I would have fun and try and recreate some artwork. So I hope this video has been interesting for you. Whether you want to follow along with what I did here, or you just want to use this video for inspiration and painting up some of your own artwork. And with all that said, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.